Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello everyone and welcome to your English class. In our lesson today, we will continue with our third unit, which is titled You've Got Mail. Our lesson today is the second part from the reading lesson in your books, page 38 and 39. All you need for the lesson today is your books, page 38 and 39, a sheet of paper and a pen to take down your notes. So let's get started. We're going to start with the exercise, the homework exercise in your books, page 102. It's actually personal questions about your preferences and things that you personally do. Exercise K on page 102. What is your favorite form of communication and why? Think about any form or mean of communication. Let's speak about if you like the idea of sending emails. Do you like sending emails? I like to do. Why? Maybe because I can write everything that I want in one place. I can take my time when I reply to the others. I can attach pictures, photos, and documents as well. Also, it is much more personal and it is documented. How about if I say that I like phone calls? It's more expressive. The one who I am calling will hear my voice and they will know how I feel. And it is instant at the moment. Once they will give you the information, you will hear it at the moment. How about if you say, I like texting much more than any other means or form of communication? Texting, it is much more convenient. All you need is just to text, write your words, and send them. And the other part or the other side is going to read it at their convenience whenever they are ready. Any others? Maybe you can speak about video calls, or maybe you will say messages or any other ones. The second question, do you need to communicate fast? Yes, we all need to communicate fast. That's why we use phone calls, video calls, audio ones, and we are using text messages. Why? Because these days we're having the desire to communicate in a fast way, fast. We don't want to wait and to exchange information quickly and fast. How often do you write letters? Why do you write them? Do you write letters? If they are paper letters, we don't usually write paper letters. If we're speaking about emails, yes, we write emails to teachers, to formal communication. If we want to contact someone who is far away from us, we can send emails. They consist of the same information, just like letters. How about if we're speaking about how do you communicate with family members? That's why we're having many forms of communication, because people communicate differently with different people. With your family, how do you, with your family members, maybe brothers, sisters, your siblings, your parents, your mom and dad, how do you communicate? Usually, if they are old, so you will use video calls, maybe voice calls. Someone who's younger, maybe you can use text messages, you can text them and write for them. How about your friends? People at your age, how do you usually communicate with them? Maybe you can say, I use messages. Mostly I text them. Or you can speak about video calls, phone calls, the way that you do with your friends, because it's much more fast, it is much more faster, and it is more convenient. So the answers are going to vary based on yourself. Okay? For our lesson today, by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to read an article, use some new vocabulary, and also answer some questions on the reading text. Okay, let's get started with this. At the beginning, we're speaking here about the forms of communication. Let's come up with these and we will speak about them one by one. At the beginning here in the picture, we're having here a man who's using fire and we're having smoke to communicate. Next, we're having a bird, hummingbirds. Hummingbirds are those birds who will transmit messages. They will take the letters and send them from one place to the other. And we're having the idea of sending letters, paper ones. Then with the development of communication, we had the instant messages, which are the telegraph. The telegraph, which is based on the sound and the beeps. Then we're having much more developed ones. We're having here the emails and the phone calls. Then later on, we've got with the most recent ones, which are text messages. It is a combination of the telegraph plus we're having nowadays the telephone and the email as well. Okay, in your books, page 38, I want you to scan 38 and 39, scan through the text and try to find the answers for the questions. What is the title for the text? You will find it on the top on the big font. The title is From Smoke Signals to Email, Keeping in Touch. So we're going to speak about the history of communication from ancient ages, from old times until today. Then, how many paragraphs are there? Count them. Each one paragraph is separate from the other. We're having actually 5 paragraphs. And what can you see in the pictures? We're having 2 pictures. The first one here on the left is a drum, so communicating using sound, and the other one using visual, which is someone who's lighting fire, and we're having the smoke. Notice the smoke that is rising. This is the way for communication. Let's get started with these for more specific information. At the beginning in here, what is the main idea of the text? We're having a very short, a few lines. You will listen to them and it will summarize the whole thing for you. What is the main idea of this text that we are about to read? Let's listen together.
From smoke signals to email, keeping in touch. From the Stone Age to the present, people have shown a desire to send messages to one another over long distances.
Okay, so what is the main idea? It's speaking from the title. You can notice that we are going to trace back the history of communication from smoke signals in ancient times until today we're having email. So trace back the history of communication. Let's start. We will take them one by one paragraph at a time, and for each paragraph you will answer a list of questions, 2 to 3 questions. The first paragraph, how did the Native Americans transmit messages, send messages? What did 2 parallel columns of smoke indicate? What is the meaning of 2 parallel lines of smoke? Let's listen and you will come up with the answer.
In ancient times, according to one story, a chain of fires on mountain tops was used to relate the news of the fall of Troy to people in Greece. In the past, native people in the Americas used smoke from fires to transmit messages. They developed a code, in which certain combinations of smoke rising had special meanings. For example, 2 parallel columns of smoke indicated the successful return of a war party.
So how did the Native Americans transmit and send messages from one place to the other? They will send it using, they use smoke from fires to transmit messages. So they will use the smoke, just like these 2 men are doing. They will have the smoke, it will go up, then the message is going to be sent far away. They're having actually a code. Each style or a drawing with the smoke will have a different message. So what did the 2 parallel columns, what do we mean by parallel? 2 lines next to each other. 2 lines of smoke, what did they indicate? It means that we're having indicate the successful return of a war party. We're having a troop. Many people went for the war, and it means that they are coming and they have won the battle. They had won. Okay, the following. In the same paragraph, can you find a word that means very old? What do we mean? Something that means very old. It's only one word. It means that we're having ancient. Anything that is ancient, very old. How about send? When you are sending something, sending a message or a code, it will be the idea of transmitting. And as we have highlighted, we're having here the idea of transing something. This is a prefix. It means to send something across. Transmit, send. Okay. Paragraph number 2, the following. You will listen and you will find the answers for these 2 questions. How did the ancient Greeks pass information through the land? And how does drum talk work? We're having the drum talk. Let's listen together.
The ancient Greeks established lines of signal towers at mountain tops. At each one, a large fire was lit to transmit a signal to the next tower, and in this way, information was passed on through the land. Also, almost anything that makes a noise has been used for signaling. A kind of drum talk is still used in Central Africa today, although few who are not natives have been able to understand it. The sender uses a drum that can produce a high or low tone. Because the local dialect alternates in these tones, the sender is able to simulate speech with the drums.
Okay, so how did the ancient Greeks, the old Greeks, pass information through land? We're having a long distance, things that are far away. What did they use? They will depend on the idea of smoke. So they started lines of signal towers on mountain tops. So on the top of mountains, a higher area of land. At each one, a large fire was lit. So they were using fire to transmit signals to the next tower. So for long or far distances, they will depend on the mountains. We will have fire on the top. Then from here, we will have sending messages and transmit it for larger area of land. How about number 2? How does drum talk work? The drums. How does it work? Is it like signals? We can't see it. It depends on how you hear. So it works as the sender uses a drum that can produce a high and a low tone and stimulate the local dialect that alternates in these tones. So as if they were speaking, we're having higher and lower, higher tones and lower tones, which are similar not to the language, to the dialect. Dialect is the language for a very specific group of people. So it is similar to their language. And as it's been mentioned in here, that this dialect or this drum talk is still used by the native African people in Central Africa, those people who are from those countries. So can you find a word that means build? Any word that means to build something is to establish it. Establishing is to start something or to build it. Who are the original people? People from this place. They are the original people. They are the native people. The native, if you are speaking a native language, it is your mother tongue, the language you were born with. Then a language version. We're having variation of language. Like Arabic, we're having many dialects, we call them. So people from different areas will speak different dialects. The same language, same Arabic, with different sounds. Okay, the third paragraph. What is the most widespread way to communicate? We're speaking about today. Who sent the first email message? And what was the first email message? Let's listen to the paragraph.
In modern times, people have communicated by letter, telegraph, and telephone. But no one method has become as widespread as quickly as the use of email. The first email message took place in 1971, and according to its sender, Ray Tomlinson, it was probably the following: QWERTYUIOP. What was significant about that? Nothing really. This is just the top row of keys on an English-language keyboard. Tomlinson was just testing out the system and using a nonsense message. He had no concept that he was going to start a revolution in communication.
Okay, so what is the most widespread way to communicate that we're living these days? It is actually the use of email. Widespread, everyone knows it. Maybe some people won't use it these days, but it is familiar with all people all around the world. Who sent the first email message? We're having here a name. He was actually Ray Tomlinson in 1971. 1971, he sent the first email message on Earth. What was the message? What was the content of that message? It was actually a nonsense. It was QWERTYUIOP. What is it? It is the top row of the keys on an English language keyboard. If you look into your keyboard, the top row starts from Q and ends with P. It was nonsense. It was nothing. It has no meaning, meaningless. But he didn't realize that with this message, he's going to change the face of communication, the reality of communication. So he didn't know that he was about to make a revolution. Okay, can you find a word that means mean or away? A mean or away? We're having a method. A method, mean or away. Also, meaningless word, a word that has no meaning. A word that has no meaning, it is nonsense. Just like the top row of the keyboard. It is nonsense, starting from the Q until the P. It has no meaning. A complete change, when you completely change something, it is actually a revolution. Revolution, to change something completely. The communication has been changed, all because Ray Tomlinson, he made a revolution. The following paragraph, find the answers for these three questions. What was the start of the first emailing system? And why did Tomlinson want to develop email? And why did Tomlinson use @ Let's listen and you will find the answers.
Tomlinson was one of a group of scientists who were working on developing better computers. The scientists at his site were able to send a message to a mailbox on the computer on their site. Other scientists could view the messages in the mailbox, but there were other computers at other sites where scientists were working on the same project. Tomlinson's idea was to figure out a way to deliver messages to mailboxes on those remote computers. He used the @ sign to identify messages that were headed out of the local machine to the more distant ones. That was the start of the emailing systems that we still use today.
So what was the start of the first emailing system? We're having here the beginning of it, that Tomlinson figured out. He discovered out a way to deliver messages to mailboxes on remote computers. So they are working on a group of scientists working together, and they are remote, far away from each other. They want to transmit messages between these computers, not within the same room. Some people are in other cities or maybe in other sites. So he used the @ sign to identify messages that were headed out of the local machine to more distant ones. So he used the @ to send the message from this side to other places outside. Okay, Why did Tomlinson want to develop email? What did he want to do? He wanted to communicate with other scientists working with him. They were outside the room, maybe in other cities or in other places. So why did he use the @ sign? He used it to signal that this message were for the distant computers. It is not for here. This message is to be sent there. So it is actually a command for the computer to send something outside. Okay. Can you find a word that means solve a problem or find a solution? What did he do? He actually figured out, to figure out something. A problem, you will find the solution. Far away, away from here, not close, far away in another city. So we will say remote. That's why we use a remote control. We're controlling something far away. The last paragraph in here, how much did the number of email users grow? So from to. How will communication be like in the future? The future of communication. Let's listen.
At first, the number of people on email was small, but by the end of the 20th century, there were 263 million email boxes. In the 21st century, that figure has grown to over 4 billion, and the functions of email services in the future will become more and more diversified. And text messaging on cell phones is also increasing, so people can, in effect, be in constant touch with people who are long distances away.
So how much did the number of email users grow from the beginning until today or the end of the 20th century? We're having actually 263 million email boxes by the end of the 20th century, to 4 billions in the 21st century. So drastic change. We're having a revolution. How will communication be like in the future? We are predicting in here. So in the future, it will be more diversified, many means of communication, not only email, also text messages, emails, and other ways will help people be in instant at the moment, touch with each other. So it will be diversified, not one mean, we will have many ways to communicate. Can you find a word that means 100 years? Any word? It means century. A century, it means 100 years. Also, make or become more diverse or varied, many types and many methods. We will say diversified. The idea of diversity, multiplicity, variety, many. Okay, in your books, page 39, the after reading questions, complete the following sentences about the reading. People have shown a need to communicate with one another since what time? From the beginning, the introduction, we can find from the Stone Age to the present, people have shown a desire to send messages to one another over long distances. So since what? We're having a time, since we're having the Stone Age or ancient times. Number 2, when Native Americans saw 2 columns of smoke, what does it mean? We have here, for example, 2 parallel columns of smoke indicate the successful return of a war party. So it means they knew that there is a winning war party returning. Number 3, although drum is used in Central Africa to communicate messages, only few non-natives who are not speaking the same language, we're having it in here. It is actually a kind of drum talk is still used in Central Africa today, although few who are not natives have been able to understand it. So non-natives can understand the drum language. Number 4, when Tomlinson sent his first message, he was not thinking of, he didn't know. he had no concept that he was about to start a revolution in communication. So we can complete this one with starting a revolution in communication. Revolution, to change it drastically. Although email only began in the 1970s, by the end of the 20th century, what happened by the end of the 20th century? The number of people on email was small, but by the end of the 20th century, there were 263 million email boxes. So I can say there were 263 million email boxes. Next, number 6. Nowadays, millions of people are used to, here, text messaging on cell phones is also increasing, so people can, in effect, be in constant touch with people who are long distances away. So in here, we can say they are used to being in constant touch with people who are long distances away. So in communication with people who are far away from them. Okay. Now I want you to think about how you communicate with different people. Different people, maybe friends, brothers and sisters, we have grandparents. So we can complete this chart. How can you communicate with friends? For me, I have chosen to communicate with friends using, in here, I would use text messages. Why? It is so good that it is convenient and easy. How about the disadvantage? The biggest disadvantage, it's not expressive. They can't hear your voice and know how you feel. How about relatives? Your uncle, your aunt? Maybe I will use phone calls. Why? The good thing about it that I can hear their voices and how they feel. However, the disadvantage is about the timing. You have to choose a good timing. How about people who live far away in another country? Maybe I will use the email, because the good thing about email, I make sure that they received it. There is always a notification that they got the email. How about the biggest disadvantage about it? That it requires internet connection, both sides, for me and for them. Okay, for your homework, I want you to check your books on page 104, exercise N. Exercise N on your books. Exercise N on your books, page 104. There is a list of questions to answer about the reading. Okay, I guess that is it for the lesson today, and thank you so much for your time.